Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Korte. I'm an architect and a partner in a Boston-based firm. We do everything from Department of Defense work to schools to residential to mixed use to labs. And I just wanted to talk through some of the stuff that we're working on over the last few years. So in the field of architecture, there's really four main trends that are affecting our work. It ranges from mobility and kind of AV, driverless cars, which affect how we're putting buildings together. Mass customization, which is affecting how we build our buildings, and this notion of personalizing our buildings, which we're finding has a lot of intersections with AR. Data, which our focus over the past year has been starting to merge data with augmented reality and virtual reality. And then mixed reality, obviously, which is going to be the focus of this conversation. And so starting from VR, which is where we started a number of years ago, basically we found this was the easiest way to get our clients into virtual reality and into augmented reality. And there's kind of two main challenges that we're still working on with this. One is the time and the schedule. Our building designs are quick. We basically have to turn around a VR or an AR experience in about 3 to 4 weeks for our clients in order to get them into the buildings. And so walking through kind of 4 ways that we're using VR in order to simulate AR, and then I'm going to launch into the AR stuff. So obviously the design visualization, we're pulling about 120 360 virtual reality images per week for some of our buildings. This is an example of a 500,000 square project that is under construction now in the Seaport. And so as part of this, we pulled the visualizations to begin to experience the space and how you begin to look at the space in there. Looking at field coordination, this is a scan of one of our buildings in downtown Boston for a hotel. And when you think about the amount of information that we're able to capture during construction, you combine that with the 3D models that we're creating in the field of architecture, and then you merge this with the final result. Our clients are asking for this in order to understand financially what is in their building, from the investment side to actually beginning to occupy it, to troubleshooting it after it exists. And so you can imagine in the field of architecture beginning to collapse all of these onto each other, from our 3D Revit model to site-captured photography in the construction field to the final building, and so that you can begin to layer and understand the different realities at any point during construction and what's behind the walls. We also look at how, should really be titled, community engagement or resiliency. And this is really one of the exciting things about AR and VR is how we might visualize complex environmental scenarios such as climate change, such as global warming, and how those impact the neighborhoods. When you think of the most common thing we hear from people is, how will this affect my neighborhood? How will rising sea levels, increased precipitation affect my building, my property? This is one way that we're able to get them into the space, have them experience what it really means to have 3 feet of sea level rise and to be standing in the neighborhood with the neighborhood overlaid, and for them to begin to interact and engage with it in real time. And so this is an example of, in Cambridge, extreme precipitation. And when you think of how these are traditionally represented as a single photo versus being able to change it yourself and you have that control, it begins to become a game changer. And so looking at augmented reality and data, plus our design process combined. And so really with AR trends, you've got the mobile, you have it being embedded in your eye, and then kind of the neuro. And that begins to line and track with the different data trends. So aggregating data, unifying data, and then this more immersive data. And so what would happen if we begin to design our buildings to actually anticipate augmented reality and this immersive series of experiences that one could have? This is an example of where we were kind of beginning of last year. Again, kind of taking the buildings, collapsing them, making them a mobile experience for our clients, and so that they can then have this experience anywhere. And then scaling that up to the 1-to-1 scale and the tabletop model scale. This is the same project, downtown Boston, looking at how we can simulate different experiences. In this case, it was sea level rise, resiliency, and then once the building is constructed, to begin to play back those different experiences, looking at it with Superstorm Grayson, as well as other sea level rise and changes that had hit. And then when you think about how You've got these studies in neuroscience that show our brains are cognitively restructuring from basically a memory-based learning to a multitasking learning that is dependent on the different devices that we use. And so what if you imagine that our building facades could begin to aggregate these data together? And so your buildings, what it looks like in the city, is no longer singular. It becomes much more personalized as you move through the building, move through the urban space, and they begin to become interconnected. And similarly, this is where we're most excited, is looking at it from the residential, from the living point of view. And we're really in this point of time where mixed reality is merging with the mixing of uses in our buildings. And so programs, spaces that we're designing are no longer limited to one function. You think about how you reside in a home. You're living there, you're sleeping there, you're hosting friends there, you're also working there. How can this singular space begin to transform and accommodate multiple activities? And so that you can imagine, as we're being pushed to make buildings more efficient, to make spaces smaller, how can those spaces begin to expand perceptually, and our understanding of what we're living in begins to change to accommodate different scenarios, higher ceilings, greater points of view, different events, et cetera. And so this is where we find this intersection of augmented reality and architecture most exciting. So be around, and we're also hosting a couple panels at the end of this block for more on data. Thanks.